Hi, everybody. I see that it's 1 p.m. Central, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started by just going through a few of our kind of regular housekeeping items as folks get logged on here. But welcome, everybody, to our quarterly conference call. I'm really excited for our presentation today. And if you are new to CSTP, welcome again. I'm so excited that you are joining us for one of these conference calls. They're a little bit different if you've only ever been to our networking calls before or some of those other offerings. This is one where we have our kind of formal presentation, but I'm so glad you all are here. And so I'm just going to pop in the chat some of our links to some of our resources within CSTP and go through those really quick as folks are joining. So our first is if you are not on our distribution list and you'd like to be, you can click that first link to be added to our distribution list. We just send out our call invites and newsletters, so we won't spam your inbox, but that's a great way to keep up with what we're doing at CSTP. The next is a submission form if you have a topic that you'd like to present. I am looking for presenters in the new year, so if you are interested, please fill that out. Or if you have a topic for the newsletter, or if you just have an idea that you'd like to share, if you're up for an interview, maybe you have something you want to talk about, but it's not quite enough for a quarterly call like this one, but you don't have time to write. If you meet with me in an interview, you fill out that form, then we meet for like 10, 15 minutes and I'll type it up and put it in the newsletter. So it's a great way to kind of get out your message or whatever your topic is without as much of a time commitment. The next link is to our next networking call, which will be later this month. In November with the holiday where it fell. We missed you in November, so we're kind of making up for it in December and have our conference call and our networking call this month. And then a couple links to our different archives. So one is our newsletter archive, so you can go back and check out all our old issues if you haven't seen them before, or if there's a specific article you remember and you're like, I can't remember which one, and you don't want to sort through your email with it, you can always just click on that newsletter archive and find them all there. We also have a conference call archive, same thing. We record these conference call presentations so that you can go back and watch them later, or if you missed part of it, you'll be able to catch up with that. The last little section here is just information on the Thrive LMS. And this is something that APHSA has put together. It's a really great resource. It's a free resource for human services. And so there is a conference call that they presented on, one of these, where they kind of break down what Thrive is and how you can utilize it. And that link is right below. And then if you would like to join, you can join our learning community. We're just kind of getting it going slowly but surely. And so you can create an account with that login page. And then if you type in that access code, you'll be added to our learning community there. So hope that you will consider joining us over on the Thrive LMS. It's just nice to have a little place and like a forum where you can ask questions or reach out to other members. So with that, so glad you all are here today. We are going to be hearing from Benjamin Bishop. He is back to follow up on his presentation a couple years ago, and I am going to hand it over to him to start talking about his topic today. Thanks so much, Benjamin.
There's that button. Thank you so much, Jenny. So, folks, hi, I am Ben, and I am super excited to be back here. Let me do the good old share screen button here. There we go. Alrighty, so I presented here previously with Jill, who is within hearing range, so please don't say anything negative about her. I know I won't. She's amazing. I don't know why this is translating to Hindi on my screen, but here we are. And I am here to talk a little bit about tabletops and teamwork, what Dungeons and Dragons can teach us about Agile. Now, for those of us who, or for those of y'all who may have attended my previous session, we talked a little bit about what Agile is. whether it is, just kind of the general concept of Agile or how you can integrate it. I'm going to do a quick little refresher here because I do believe that we presented back in 2023, I think November, so it's been just a little over 2 years since we did so. And after I walk through that, we're going to get into doing everything all proper like. Thank you again, Jenny, for this forum to be able to talk to y'all about this. I'm very excited to be able to mostly just talk about Dungeons and Dragons and log it as work time. So let's look. Now, first and foremost, we're going to talk about how all of this started. Our team produces a weekly newsletter for our county partners and CSB staff that we call the CSB Weekly News. Back in 2021, my team identified some bottlenecks. There were some issues that were going on. Submissions were lost. They were misunderstood. They were misplaced. And because we had so many mailboxes and so many different spaces where the requests were landing, we didn't really have any way of gathering everything together. There was no real official format for communication submission. I'm using my hands a lot. Let me go ahead and turn on my camera here and also make it so that you can see my camera. Ah, good. Yes, my Pokemon are still in the background. That's what we like to see. Okay, moving on. Um, there wasn't really a format for how our communications needed to be submitted. So we would have folks from directors to just about anything come in and try and follow along with us, but they weren't able to really or come in and try and send us information, but a lot of times we would wind up missing things. So there was a lot of trouble with double checking. We kept on having trouble with deadlines. There were no real regulations for submission, so we kept on having things that were submitted as just kind of concepts or things like that. And so something needed fixed. So we fixed it with a process called Agile. A lot of us are probably familiar with that. It is, long story short, just a methodology, a way of thinking about making things work, trusting your team, letting the team take things forward, and let them do what they need to do. And in order to talk more about this, I want to talk a little bit more about Dungeons and Dragons, which is where Dungeons and Dragons comes in, specifically this blue dragon, which blue dragons have electrical powers for those of you who do not know. For those of you who do know, I apologize. Anyways, um, so where does D&D come in? So D&D, or Dungeons and Dragons, is a type of tabletop role-playing game, also called a TTRPG. Um, it started as the chainmail miniature war game, and then famously Gary Gygax and some buddies got together. That is his actual name, yes, and put together Dungeons and Dragons, the actual book, in 1974. Um, it's just a way of essentially telling a story in a community way. Same thing that we have seen with oral histories and things being passed down. A lot of times there were, in ancient storytelling, you would have options for call and response, or for people to make a statement while things are going on, and kind of influence the flow of the story. And this is really kind of derived from that ultimately. We see examples with Beowulf and the Brothers Grimm, these traditional stories that are passed down verbally, with each reader or each speaker putting their own emphasis on how the story is passed on. Essentially, we're doing that now, but we are using dice to add an extra complication to determine how well a task is accomplished, and kind of take it out of the hands of even not just the general narrator, not just the quote unquote audience, the players, but also the everything. Like, it is just left up to chance how well person X, Y, or Z may do. Now, that's the long short of that. But team building and problem solving is where D&D really takes off. So Agile relies very heavily on a team working together and trusting each other. We see examples of that with consensus building. A lot of Agile is working together to arrive at the best possible option. We see a difference between initial goals and eventual desired outcomes between D&D, both in D&D and in Agile processes. We see that there are some very complex processes that are integrated. Things aren't just assumed to be pretty straightforward. We know that something is going to come in and can complicate it. There's just-in-time planning, working on things as problems come up, and having roles and small teams with limited leadership, kind of these self-governing teams, all of which kind of comes back down to your little group playing through a game, your parties, in Dungeons and Dragons, in TTRPGs. Now, we know that as a tabletop role-playing game, there is going to be an element of role play. So let's get into how that serves as a little bit of an allegory for agile methodology. Each character, each person, each player has specific abilities, strengths, weaknesses, just about any game that you've played, whether it's D&D or anything else. If you've got a character, you have a particular set of powers, a particular set of things you do well. Some can fly in D&D, some get 2 attacks per session, things like that. Stuff that kind of makes you stick out or makes your character have a particular ability or lack thereof. Um, some characters have a role to play in any given battle. You'll have wizards who have to stay back. They're pretty weak. They're called glass cannons. They can't take a lot of hits, but they do have powerful spells. Um, clerics are more along, or clerics have a lot of health, but they don't have a lot of abilities to fight things. Um, so with that magic and the weapons, different enemies can resist certain types of attacks. So all that is to say, at the end of the day, you wind up with this character that is able to do certain things, but is not able to do other things. Let's talk a little bit about folks' jobs here. Now, monks, they're usually unarmed. They can rush in and rush out. They get an extra attack, but that means that they don't have any weapons. They don't have any magic really that they can do. They just run up, punch something, and run away. Um, we have wizards who do ranged attacks. We talked a little bit about their glass cannon concept. Paladins are heavies and have a bunch of healing spells, so they can run around the battlefield and do just about anything you want. And then rogues are going to be support. They're going to have low health and low range. Now, everybody here has a particular strength, a particular skill. The monk can fight in just about any given area. The wizard has a specific use as someone who's far back. The paladin can kind of go up close or run away. But then we've got the rogue, who has low health, has low range. Okay, so in a combat situation, when you've got all these folks going up and trying to fight a dragon, you're not going to see good things come of this. All right, specifically of the rogue. But so one would say, okay, we have this entire team. What's the objective here with the rogue? Why is the rogue here if we're trying to fight a dragon? Well, that's because D&D isn't just about battles. We don't just build widgets here. Um, that rogues are support in combat. They're low health, low range, not a lot of abilities. But D&D is also not just a war game, not just a game for battles. Um, at my job, my unit does not directly interact with participants, with people who, and not at all of our jobs. Um, we don't a lot of times interact directly with folks who are paying for child support or paying child support or receiving child support. Usually we do trainings. We train the people at the state level or at the county level who then go out into the metaphorical trenches and do the work directly with the families. So I may not be our best graphic designer, but we aren't here to do graphic design. Rogues aren't great at hand-to-hand combat, but once you get them in an urban setting in D&D, you have to trust them in that role, and then they can do just about anything you want. Okay? If you need somebody to steal from something, you're not going to send in the guy in the heavy plate metal or plate metal armor, our paladin who is good on just about anything to do with a battlefield. You're going to send in the rogue who is sneaky and can steal things very easily. That is a halfling rogue, incidentally, who is a hobbit, which is based off of Lord of the Rings very strongly. Anyways, so there's also the concept in D&D of table talk. Okay, so you're playing the game, you're role playing, you're doing all this stuff, you're pretending to be whoever, but a lot of people do a lot of what's called table talk. That is, not acting as your character, not pretending to be whatever strange creature that you're playing through and rolling for, but rather just saying, hey, other human beings like me at the table, what should we do here? It helps when you're defining roles or when you're encouraging action, trying to say, okay, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. A lot of planning can take place a lot easier that way than trying to do it in character. Adapting to changing conditions. So if your DM, the person who's in charge of the game, is telling you something new is happening, then the players are going to want to plan for this, going to want to talk about this. They're going to form plans, suggest different actions to do, and then they're going to talk about whether they need to do something now, maybe later, wait a little bit in case they have a limited ability to do something. And then they can, based off of what happens, work together to change their goals. They have to get to the finish line in whatever way is possible, and they have to trust everyone to do their jobs. Now, when we are playing D&D, people are going to roll poorly. Something's going to go wrong. Someone will be too busy to help. Part of the role of Agile is to encourage continuous feedback and improvement as well as collaboration. If someone stumbles, if something changes, if a requirement isn't met or a new requirement appears, then we need to have a culture where that doesn't matter, where we can make those changes and make those goals work, those new and improved ways of approaching things. Extra monsters will be rolled. So this is a reference to in D&D. Um, if you are facing a certain type of enemy, a lot of times you will have the DM roll further numbers of this group, and therefore you'll have more and more monsters appear. And that is largely random and left up to the dice. So challenges are going to come out of nowhere. Requirements are going to change. We will have to adapt to volatile situations and do so in the moment in order to be agile. And then finally, the game manager, the GM, will cheat. We will want to be inflexible. Okay. If we are acting in a leadership capacity, we're going to want to take things over, or we're going to want to take things over from our teammate who we don't think is handling things as well as we are. Um, we have to do this thing right. And I know that I can do it right. So why would I let someone else do it? Especially early in the process, it's important not to stack cards for or against your team. You have to let things land as they lay. Naturally, we want to be able to provide that support to each other, and that support is very important. But also, we need to make sure that we are allowing people to do what they need to do in order to really get things happening within their game. So that is our introduction to how D&D and agile methodology work together or are similar and therefore look a lot alike from time to time. Do we have any questions before we move into the next section? Alrighty, not seeing any questions. We'll go ahead and move on to the gaming part. So, as previously mentioned, not only am I trying to figure out a way to play or to talk about D&D on work time, I'm also figuring out a way to play D&D on work time. So if you get the chance, go ahead and scan that QR code there on your screen. You can also go to menti.com. Here in just a moment, I'm going to move this away. All right. So join at minty.com and use the code 7406 63333. There you go. Good job. All right. Go ahead, folks. Fill this up. Let's see how it works. If we all understand how it works, go ahead and go to minty.com, use that code, and just type whatever you think, whatever you first think of. Doesn't have to be anything in particular that's special for the Aarakocra monk. Not use armor. Very good. Very good. Monks are better without armor. Well done, you. Flurry of blows. Thank you. Another nerd. I'm happy to see it. Alrighty. Looking like we've got the general hang of it. So I'm going to run us to pray vigorously. Very good. Yes, I also would were I an Aarakocra monk. Though they do have an unarmed attack that's very special. But anyways, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start out with a classic intro. Okay, get into the castle, save the princess, get out. We have four people, four characters that we're going to be playing as. We've got an Aarakocra monk. Aarakocras are basically bird people. Um, an elf wizard. Elves are basically elves. We have a dragonborn paladin. That is a giant lizard person who apparently in canon isn't technically related to dragons. It's a whole thing. It's just a lizard person. And then we have halfling rogues. Those are your hobbits. Okay. So again, we're getting into a castle and saving a princess. So I'm going to go ahead and reset this slide here. And we're going to start out with our Aarakocra monk. Now, um, you have arrived at this castle by way of quite a number of travails and different obstacles. And as you come to, as an Aarakocra monk, you know you're in the correct castle, but you find yourself in a large open room with something moving on the opposite side of it. What do you do? You come to in a large chamber, something seems to be moving on the opposite side. What do you do? We've got a vote for runaway. All right, love that. Mind my business, hide and watch. Sounds like we're all kind of going for the general hiding concept. So we're going to use this here, and we're going to roll our D6 to see how well we do. Alrighty, so the 6 is the highest number on there, so we did very well at that. Well done, everyone. So, what does the Aarakocra monk do? It minds its business, hides and watches, prepares for battle, and runs away. So, I'm going to say that we are going to run behind a nearby bench that just happened to kind of be near us. And as we look over that little bit of cover, we actually see the elf wizard beginning to move around, or something that kind of looks like the elf wizard we knew. We begin to move toward it a little, so seeing this, and with your 6, you see that the elf wizard is kind of acting a little bit strange. Okay. Its movements are a little bit odd. It seems to be trying to do some things that or it has mannerisms that you're not really familiar with it having. So seeing this and being prepared for battle as we are, what do we do? Okay, we have a vote for teaming up with the wizard. Very good. All right, looks like that's our main thing. So we go up to the wizard, um, and shout, "Are you okay?" while throwing a bench at it. I'm down with that. Let's see. Ooh, a two. So, as we approach the wizard, the wizard kind of straightens up, begins acting a little bit more normal, and looks at us and says, "Not particularly." And then we are going to move on to our next person, the elf wizard. Now, as you came to elf wizard, you began to feel a little bit of heat. And you started trying to kind of fan yourself off or trying to get cooler. But for some reason, it kept on getting hotter and hotter and hotter. So as you see your Aarakocra friend approaching you and they say, "Are you okay?" What's your response? All right, so you warn them to stay back. Let's see how well that works. Now, you successfully told them to stay far back, and they do so as you continue to feel that heat build. And getting a five as you do, you begin to notice where that heat is coming from, which is directly behind you. And as you look around, naturally, you see from the gaping, or you see the gate behind you happens to have on the other side of it not only your dragonborn paladin friend, but also a large dragon breathing out its steaming, fiery breath, ready to presumably give you a good old-fashioned roasting. So, what, given this little development, do you do? Do you want to try and cast a spell? Do we want to try and run away? We're going to pss, 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 pss at the dragon. I love that option. Befriend the dragon and cast a spell. So there are some spells that help us to befriend animals. So, ooh, and this one seems to have worked particularly well. So you walk up to the dragon and you ignore your paladin friend. As you go up close to the dragon, you cast a spell in order to make you and the dragon talk more easily. And then we are going to go ahead as you speak to the dragon and we are going to look at our Dragonborn Paladin. Now, you didn't notice the heat immediately because of your tough dragonish hide, but what you did notice was your friend approaching, ignoring you for this giant creature directly behind you, and then beginning to talk to it, which incidentally, you've just now recognized that there's a giant creature behind you. So, your quest to save the princesses seems to have gotten a little bit off kilter. What do you do when you see your elf wizard coming up to talk to this dragon next to you? All right, we're going to help the wizard. Let's see how well our helping goes, because paladins are full of charisma. So let's see. Alrighty, and we get a five. So with a five roll, you do know the dragon a little bit, at least its species and general temperament. So you're able to begin to create a little bit of support for your wizard friend by intervening in different ways, speaking a little bit in dragon tongue, and helping to calm this dragon down. It seems to be a little bit frustrated, a little bit traumatized for some reason. And as you move closer to it, you hear a clink beginning between you and your wizard friend, and you see the gate begin to come up. Now, you've successfully befriended this dragon, but even though this has happened, its pupils suddenly go from broad and round to slits, as though it's um, as though it's trying to protect itself. You feel its entire presence begin to change, and even the heat uh, becomes less of a radiant, steamy warmth and more of a dry heat, more of an angry heat. As the dragon begins to shake out its back and wings and begins to push toward the gate, what do you do being stuck between the dragon and the gate? One second. I forgot to reset it. Okay. Alrighty. We're jumping out of the way and letting the dragon out. Or flying on the dragon. I love that. So with a 4, we fly up or we jump onto the dragon in an attempt to help it get out. I'm going to say that we are kind of pushing down on its head to help it squeeze its head through. And as it comes through, it takes us with it. So we don't successfully jump out of the way, but we do manage to get on the dragon as the dragon comes out through the bottom of the gate. It comes into the massive chamber, which, from your vantage point, you can now see is a large stadium, and at the opposite end, um, across from the monk, the wizard, and you can now see some sort of being that has a large that seems to have a large staff and looks generally magical. All right, and it's standing um, on a dais far across from you with a princess or with the princess that you are after tied directly next to it. Now, with our dragonborn riding a dragon, as one should do, and our wizard helping out and our monk hopefully staying a little bit back, we then will see our rogue. Now, the rogue wakes up in a different place in a hallway. You come to when you hear the clatter of some metal against dragon scale. The fact that you know what metal against dragon scale sounds like is a fact that we'll try to think about a little bit more later. Um, when you come to, you notice that you are in a closet surrounded by what looks to be a mop, a bucket, and perhaps a broom. What do you do? Eat second breakfast. Very good option. Very good option. You definitely have some limbus with you. All right, we're eating, we're getting the supplies, and we're sneaking out to sea. So, as you begin to step out of the closet, mop in hand, sorry, brandishing your mop, we'll make that a little bit more descriptive, and with limbos being slowly chewed, you look out across the way to see that you are in a supply closet that seems to be directly behind what you presume to be some sort of lich. That is a basically an evil undead wizard. Let's see how sneaky you are today. Not very. So you sneak out with your supplies and with your breakfast in mouth, and as you do so, you hear the crack of the broom that you've accidentally dragged behind you, and it causes the creature that you see in front of you to turn around. And as it does so, its glowing eyes kind of light the princess. And you know now that you are directly behind not just the princess that you're looking for, but also the lich who has presumably stolen her. Now, you have been noticed, or at least the sound has. After making the sound and seeing this creature start to turn around, what do you do? Gotta get back in the closet. Fair, fair. Fight it with the mop and try to untie the princess. Sounds like we are gonna try and sneak around a little bit and whack this guy with a mop, and we get a 6. All right. So hiding in the shadows, you manage to see, or the lich kind of moves towards you, and as it does so, you whack it with a mop. That doesn't necessarily take it out, again, undead, but you are able to distract it for long enough that you run over to the princess and begin to untie her. As you do so, you see a dragon taking flight directly in front of you. Now, what do you do? Alrighty, so you begin to shout for help, trying to get some of your buddies to come and help you. You try to yell to get the lich, and you know that um, that this dragon hopefully will be there to help you, but you don't see your friends on there. Um, However, they do in fact hear you. As you leap off of the balcony with the princess in tow, the dragon flies over to the balcony, drops off your friends, and they then proceed to wall up the lich, thereby saving the princess. And congratulations, you have won the day. You all level up and get one rare item of your choosing from the list of magical items. Feel free to roll your D100 at any point. All right, so we have now done a little bit of our game. Um, Now, what are our correlations here? Firstly, dragons are going to come. All right. But we knew in that moment that we needed to adapt. We needed to change the way that we were approaching things. Naturally, the classic is we've got to slay the dragon, save the princess. But the dragon here was actually an ally. It was a friend to us. We saw something come our way. Instead of viewing it as an impediment, as something that we needed to stop, we said, well, maybe there's a way for us to keep us and others safe in this moment. Paths are going to change. The project goal is going to shift. When we were a monk initially, we needed to just figure out what we were doing. A wizard, we needed to figure out how to approach this dragon. A dragonborn, we needed to figure out how to save ourselves essentially. And as a monk, or sorry, as a rogue, we needed to figure out how to take down the bad guy. So even though we had the same ultimate goal, our paths, our ultimate, like how we were going to accomplish that, and how and what we were going to do in order to get that final product to fit what we want, all of that had to change. Communications ease issues. Um, when we shouted to or at the first, we determined that we wanted to communicate with one of our allies. We wanted to trust that they were really our ally, doing what we needed them to do. And that communication helped us to kind of set things moving. Same with our rogue at the end, shouting out that the others needed to get the dragon. We were able therefore to or sorry, shouting that the others needed to get the lich. We were able to rely on our friends, rely on our teammates to keep us safe, to keep us well, and to keep everything moving forward. And then finally, we trusted in the abilities of ourselves and others. Um, with your paladins, with our dragonborns, with our dragonborn, we were able to kind of not just use our strength, but also our skills and our charisma and our abilities to bond with others in order to make our path forward easier. When we were the rogue, we used our abilities not to take down the bad guy, but to accomplish our goal of saving the princess and letting our people who can fight better do the fighting. Now, let's talk shop. So, how did we fix the CSB weekly news? How did we fix our weekly news? We had a series of rapid improvement events, RIEs, to discuss what was causing our issues. What was our problem? What was our dragon we needed to slay? Our princess we needed to rescue? And based off of that, we first determined that we needed to impose a due date. If we said just turn things in, we'll get it turned away, we would get things that needed complete revision or complete from the ground up writing on the day it was going out. A due date had to be imposed. Next, we determined that we needed to we needed to create a submission form. Initially, it was you need to send us this to this email, but we determined that that was an even that was a much smaller issue, but there were still issues stemming from that. So we determined that it would be best if we created a submission form. And that submission form then served as a single point of submission, taking our many, many ways of submitting a story to the CSB Weekly News to one. We created a Trello board that helped us to organize everything, to make sure that we knew when each story needed to go out and that things were logged immediately. And then we started to mark things for when they had been added to the weekly news, when our current thing was done, etc. We created a workspace, a special area where we would just work with our coworkers on the weekly news and weekly news adjacent things, saving everything in one central spot so that we could always refer back to what we needed. Roles were assigned to team members. We had two folks who would actually work on the weekly news, and then the rest of our team, for the most part, would do a review for grammar or would do a review for making sure that the text is what it needed to be. Then we would open it up more broadly, have supervisors and folks who submitted their news stories look at it and say what they needed changed, etc. We entered a proofing and approval process and added those after our due dates so that we are able to revise if things need to or if things need to be changed once they're in the weekly news. And then finally, we had discussions with end users, and these revealed unused time sucks. For example, content links. We had a list of, or we had lists to particular stories in the weekly news, but people weren't using them. People were not using our table of contents to click to a different spot. And with the software that we used at the time, that took up an extra half an hour to an hour of trying to create those links internally and making sure that they worked and making sure that they went where they needed to go, et cetera, only for nobody to use them. So we scrapped that, or at least the manual part of it. They have been brought back, but because the software we use now does them automatically. And what's more, once we did what we needed to do, once we improved our process for the weekly news, we didn't just let it sit. We continued to improve. We recognized that everything that we did needed to continue, that we need to continue to change what our project goal was in accordance with what needed doing for us. So, for example, as when we first started out, we would have folks submit to our email, and then we began to realize, well, actually, it would be better if we could have everything in a form that we can then refer back to as often as we need to, and no one needs to forward anything to anybody, etc. We did that. Then we said, wait, if we automate it a little bit, we can get notified of every submission. So we don't have to ever like look at the data really unless something's going poorly. So we did that. We began to use InDesign to meet industry standards, to facilitate a lot of the things we were doing, especially the image heavy stuff, and in order to modernize our processes and make it easier to share. We streamlined to a single doc review process. We put our final draft, quote unquote, online and then sent that for comment so that anybody who is reviewing this is reviewing on the same document and we're not getting 15 people saying, hey, put the comment there. We have every individual issue that is notified and everyone is looking at everything from the same angle. And then finally, we are even moving forward, exploring a more web-based program, looking at some of the issues that that might create for some of our stakeholders, since a lot of folks in our counties will have um, restrictions on websites that they can visit. We're back and forth about what we need to do, how to do that, and we're just and we're just exploring it so that we can ensure that what we do is the most modern thing possible and the best for our stakeholders. So our major takeaways: collaboration, co-work, and chaos. Um, we have to work together, even through the things that make no sense together. We have to have frameworks for leadership and organization. We have to be highly reactive. We have to act in the moment, and we have to have and we have to note the systems that emerge for action. If we're doing something, we need to be able to work together through whatever system it is, through trusting people to do their processes, um, and having plans, being ready to do things together. So that is it for my presentation proper. Here are our good old-fashioned sources. Agile software development. We've got Dungeons and Dragons, the official home of the world's greatest role-playing game. Interactive presentation software, Mentimeter. I highly recommend Mentimeter if you need something that's not a traditional participation structure for your trainings. Of course, the Toyota Way, kind of the grandfather of Agile. And then Roll for Shoes, which is a very simple TTRPG that is the basis for the system that we use today. And that ends us with a list of all of the terrible things about Jenny. As you can clearly see, it is blank. Jenny, back over to you. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank you so much, Ben. That was a great presentation and a great follow-up to your original concept you shared. I really appreciate that you were able to tell us about your weekly news that went out and how you were able to use those strategies. So that was great and always fun to have a little game for everyone to play too. But um, if anybody has any questions, we do have a little bit of time here. Uh, Feel free to write them in the chat or come off mute. And I know we've got a little bit of time if you do have any questions or comments for Ben.
Yep, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have, especially if it's about D&D. Well, if I can ask a couple of questions, if that'd be okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know a lot of us have had kind of some experience in like major changes, especially with, it being a presidential election cycle. We all have like big changes that have come across for our organizations. Um, what's something that a challenge that you've faced that you've had to kind of overcome over the course of these last 12 months? It's December, so worth looking back on. What's a challenge you had to overcome and kind of how did you go about it?
Hello, my name's Gloria. I'm up here in Alaska, and right now we are building. Well, we're finished building. We've gone go live for our new system. So it's been a year, two actually. So it's been quite the obstacle. Where I'm in the process right now of coming up with new training materials for basically transferring over what we were doing into the new system. So it's I'm busy and it's exciting to kind of update old stuff, but kind of come like I love your how you've used this to kind of like share what you love what you do with what you love. So it's just been fun to kind of get back to our roots as training team, quit learning about the system and start being able to connect with people again and teach them stuff. And so I'm excited. And that's just one obstacle that I'm dealing with right now up here in Alaska. And it's freezing, by the way. We have a high of like 8 today. So
I know it's supposed to get rough here in Indiana here in a little while. Not 8. I think you've got me beat. You're winning, I'm winning, someone is.
I don't feel
Maybe
like
we're
I'm
all just
winning this
losing
time.
to different degrees.
Yeah. My space heater under the desk is winning, that's for sure. So, but thank you.
It's not
Thank
any
you.
better in Iowa either. It's snowing again here, so
Yeah.
yeah.
We have been advised
Coming your
to
way then,
take our
Ben.
laptops home tonight.
Yeah, I was gonna go in the office today, and then I sent some messages this morning. Never mind, I'm staying put at home because I don't know if I'll make it back before the snow. And I can share too, Ben, this year, it's been a very interesting year for a lot of reasons, but it was the 50th anniversary of the child support program for a lot of folks. It was here in Iowa too. And the powers that be wanted to have a party and wanted to have a big celebration. And, like everything else, things just kind of time goes fast. And so you have an idea, a couple years before that you're going to go for it. And then all of a sudden it's like in a couple months. And so myself and a colleague of mine were asked to help. Come up with a presentation or something for the staff, just to look back at the history and to look forward at the future of child support in our state. And it was a really fun project, but of course, with anything like that and such a short time frame, it's always like, oh my gosh, did I, you know, what can we do? What do we have time for? How can we make this really special and fun? But what's realistic? And so it was a really exciting project to be part of. And it was really, it's a fun topic. It's not so, it's not like you get a pack of like a new process or something and it's this dry material that you have to read through. But it was a challenge just because of our time constraints and what we could put together that quickly. And so it worked out. We've had our party last month and it all came together in the end, but I there was a lot of kind of what you described of going back and forth and quickly meeting and trying to figure out what can we do, and it was definitely a team effort. Everybody kind of came together and
Mm.
did one little piece, and then it could come together to make something fun for everybody. So that's what came to my mind when you kind of asked.
No, exactly. Yeah. And I think that, again, we all have these like we're all change is the only constant, as they say, and that's one of the things that like the agile process is really intent on recognizing. Like even your the final thing that you're going for, it's okay if that changes. It is okay. Like if we say, if one of your goals at the very start is, okay, I need to have a 15-question quiz at the end, and then you get to the end and you're like, well, actually, I've asked questions throughout. We know that cumulative scores aren't really that helpful in this, and like the rest of the structure of the class doesn't work. Okay, don't do it then. That's not a requirement anymore. We don't have to have that. If everyone agrees, if it is not necessary anymore, just move on from it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the things that with Agile and of course with D&D, and with Pokemon, while we're keeping on brand here, that just really resonates with me. Like it's okay to change what we're going for.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's always good to keep that in mind. Let go if it's not working. Take what you need, leave what you don't. Let
Exactly.
it go. Absolutely. Any other comments or questions or anything in our last few minutes from any of you on the call? I appreciate everybody that came to listen and hear just more about this topic. And if not, that's okay. You can always reach out to me anytime, like I said, and I'll just pop in those links just one more time to our chat here, just so that in case you missed them when you logged on, you can access them before you go. But always feel free to reach out to me at any time if you have any questions or ideas, or I always think of things later on and I'm like, middle of the night, wake up, oh my gosh, I need to send an email. I need to ask about this. I'm like writing it down. So if you are the same way and you have any questions or think of something later on, don't hesitate to reach out, and I can always put you in touch with Ben here to answer any questions about his presentation, or if you have any ideas or questions for anything CSTP related, always reach out. I really appreciate hearing from you all, and that's how Ben filled out the form, and that's how we got this great topic on for this month's or this quarter's presentation. So definitely, if you have any ideas or would like to share, I would love to hear from you, and get a date set so that you can present at a call like this one, because that's what really makes it great. I'm sure everyone is tired of listening to me talk. And I hope that you will all join us for our next networking call, because those are really fun too. Just a way to, there's no formal topic. It's just no presentation. We just kind of gather together, and for over the summer, I think we had kind of some dwindling numbers, but now we're kind of hitting our rhythm, I think, again. And we've had a pretty strong kind of group of folks that come and interact and participate. And it's always interesting to see where the conversation goes. And so they're a lot of fun, and I think just something before the holidays. I think this one's on a Friday, so hopefully it won't be too busy of a day before everybody gets some time off. So if you have some time and you're available, please join us. If not, hopefully we'll catch you at the next one. But so glad that you all were here today, and reach out if there's any way that I can help or anything you need at all.